Good day, sir. I am. Ahem. Good day, sir. I am Juan Aguilon, and I will be reporting or reviewing art movements. So the first one is classical art movements and techniques, where classical art most specifically refers to art of ancient Greece and Rome. But the classical ideas, order, balance, harmony were revived in movements like the Renaissance and Neoclassicism. So its key characteristics are focus and ideal, emphasizing balance, harmony, order, and idealized beauty. It seeks perfection and often focuses on heroic or majestic forms. Style and technique strives for realism and naturalism, prioritizing accurate human proportion, often based on mathematical ratios like the golden ratio, symmetry, and detailed craftsmanship. Subject matter predominantly features religious themes, mythology, and historical events. Its function was often to tell a story, inspire devotion, or express the power of wealthy, influential patrons. Its philosophy believes in universal truths and celebrates humanity and religion within a framework of rigid, established structures. Time frame from ancient antiquity, around 800 before BCE. True revivals like the Renaissance, 14th to 16th century, and Neoclassicism, 18th century. Examples of these are the Greek sculpture, Discobolus, Renaissance painting, the School of Athens, and Raphael. Neoclassical architecture like the Parthenon. So the first one is we call it we call it naturalism. So the proponent is Leonardo da Vinci, flourishing context early and high Renaissance 15th to 16th centuries, primarily in Italy and the Netherlands, fueled by the rediscovery of classical sculpture and advances in optics and anatomy. Beliefs and practices: belief that art should be an accurate mirror of reality. Practices included scientific study of human anatomy and use their linear and atmospheric perspective and realistic depiction of light and shadow. So the artistic interpretation is Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci reflects naturalism through the use of fumato, subtle blending of tones to create soft, realistic transitions of light and shadow, giving the figure uncanny sense of life and dimensionality. So the next one is the School of Athens by Raphael. So humanism. As I said, the proponent is Raphael, the flourishing context, Italian Renaissance, 14th to 16th centuries, originating in Florence. It emerged as scholars rediscovered and translated classical Greek and Roman texts, emphasizing human potential. Beliefs and practices places humanity at the center of existence, emphasizing human worth, potential, and capabilities, rather than exclusively divine matters. Art shifted focus from God to the individual as their achievements, embracing classical mythology and history. Artistic interpretation: The School of Athens by Raphael. This fresco places the great thinkers of classical antiquity, Plato and Aristotle, in the management human scale setting, celebrating human reason, knowledge, and classical philosophy at the highest ideals. Next one is fresco painting. Woman is Michelangelo, flourishing context widely used across Europe but perfected in Renaissance Italy. For decorating large church and palace walls, it was preferred medium for monumental works. Beliefs and practices: pigments are mixed with water and painted onto wet lime plaster. The chemical reaction to the plaster drives bonds the pigment permanently onto the wall, requiring the artist's work to quickly and without error. The, the artistic interpretation is the Ceiling of Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. This enormous work demonstrates the technical mastery required for fresco, executed on a massive scale to tell complex narrative cycles, with the pigment becoming an integral of the architecture. Next one is tempera painting. The artistic proponent is Sandro Botticelli. Flourishing context, dominant painting medium throughout the Middle Ages and early Italian Renaissance for panel paintings before being largely supplanted by oil paint. Beliefs and practices, pigment is mixed with egg yolk binder. It dries very quickly and is layered onto gesso coated wood panels. The quick drying nature encourages the linear style, achieving shades through fine parallel lines hatching rather than smooth blending. Artistic interpretation is the birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. The smooth, opaque colors and precise lines defining the figures and background are characteristic of Tempera's linear handing, giving the most distinct, sharp clarity. So the, so the next one is oil painting. Proponent is John van Eyck. Flourishing contents pioneered in early Northern Renaissance in the Netherlands and rapidly adopted in Italy and the rest of Europe. It became the dominant medium for the 16th century onward. Beliefs and practices, pigment is mixed with a drying oil. Its slow drying time allows artists to achieve seamless blending, rich color saturation, and build up translucent layers glazes, significantly enhancing naturalistic effects. Artistic interpretation is Armolfini portrait by Jan van Eyck. The technique allowed Jan van Eyck to render astonishing levels of detail and realism, from the textures of the fur and fabric to the tiny reflections in the mirror, highlighting the medium's capacity for luminous depth. So next one is the modern art movements. Modern art is generally encompasses movements from the late 19th century to mid 20th century, characterized by a break from tradition. Its key characteristics focuses on ideal, emphasizing personal expression, subjectivity, and innovation. Often questions traditional notions of beauty and perfection. So the style and technique embraces abstraction, experimentation, and rejection of traditional realism. Arts experimented with the new materials, forms, shapes, lines, colors, and techniques like collage, distorted perspectives. Its subject matter expands the scope to include everyday life, industrial landscape, deep personal emotions, and abstract concepts that have no defined meaning or story. Philosophy is often associated with critique, rebellion, a sense of unease about mid-modern society, and artist creates work primarily for self-expression. Time frame roughly from the mid 19th century, realism, impressionism in the 1960s. Examples of movements are impressionism, cubism, surrealism, abstract expression, and pop art, as we discussed today. So first, let's go to impressionism. So its proponents is Claude Monet. Flourishing context, Paris, France emerged as a reaction to the rigid rules of the official French Academy, influenced by new synthetic pigments and the popularization of photography. Beliefs and practices focuses on capturing the fleeting, momentary perception of light and color as experienced from the outside world. Practices include using broken brushstrokes and avoiding black, mixing colors on the canvas rather than the palette. Impression Sunrise by Claude Monet. The title inspired by the movement's name. It depicts a harbor scene using loose, visible brushstrokes and vivid color to prioritize the shimmering effect of the sunrise over sharp academic detail. Next is post-impressionism. Aspect is Vincent van Gogh. Flourishing context, France, a diverse group of artists who were Initially impressionist but sought inject more structure, symbolism, and emotional context back into art. Beliefs and practices retained the vivid palette and the personal technique of Impressionism but applied to it deeper, more lasting expressions. Van Gogh used expressive color and swirling forms. Artistic impression is the Starry Night, the iconic Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. Reflects the movement shift toward subjective emotion with the highly visible impasto brushstrokes and exaggerated vibrant colors convey the artist's intense internal emotional state rather than a simple visual reality. Next is Cubism. Proponent is Pablo Picasso. Flourishing context, Paris, France. Inspired by the geometric simplification of the form found in African sculpture and the work of Cézanne. Rejected the traditional Renaissance concept of perspective objects like are analyzed, broken up, and reassembled in an abstracted form. The goal was to depict the subject from multiple viewpoints simultaneously, challenging the viewer's perception of the space and time. Artistic impression is Les Demoiselles d'Avignon by Pablo Picasso. The five female nudes are fractured into angular geometric planes, showing the figures and the space they occupy from several inconsistent perspectives, signaling the beginning of Cubism. Next up is Fauvism. Proponent is Henri Matisse. Flourishing contents, Paris, France. Name, Fauves, which is known as wild beasts, was coined by a critique due to their shockingly bold use of color. Beliefs and practices emphasize expressive, non-naturalistic color as the primarily formal element. Color was used for emotional impact and decoration rather than descriptive realism. They use simplified forms and flat areas of color. Artistic impression by Woman in with a Hat by Henri Matisse. Matisse depicts his subject with harsh, arbitrary colors, bright greens, yellows, and blues applied with loose strokes. The color is completely unrelated to the subject's actual appearance, prioritizing emotional expression and visual energy. Next is Expressionism. Proponent is Edward Munch. Flourishing contents, Germany, developed as a reaction to industrialization and alienation, seeking to express profound psychological states and inner feeling. Beliefs and practices sought to express the artist's subjective experience to the world, often depicting anxiety, fear, and emotional turmoil, characterized by distorted figures, jarring colors, and aggressive, agitated brushwork. Artistic impression is The Scream by Edward Munch in 1893. The swirling, distorted lines and fiery, unsettling colors in the sky and landscape are non-realistic. They visualize the main figure's intense internal cry for anguish and anxiety. Next is Dadaism. Proponents is Marcel Duchamp. Flourishing contents. The flourishing context is the rich Switzerland spreading into Berlin and New York, a response to the horrors of senselessness in World War III. Beliefs and practices, a radical anti-art movement that rejected reason, logic, and aesthetic conventions, valued the irrational chance and absurdity. Practices include ready-mades, found object presented as art, and photo montage. Artistic interpretation is Fountain by Marcel Duchamp in 1917. A standard porcelain urinal signed R. Mutt as presented as sculpture. It challenges the very definition of art, arguing the art is whatever the artist say it is, prioritizing the conceptual idea over manual skill or beauty. Next is Surrealism. Proponents Salvador Dali. Flourishing context, Paris, France, growing directly out of Dadaism, deeply influenced by the psychological theories and Sigmund Freud regarding to the unconscious mind. Sought to unlock the power of unconscious mind, sets the beliefs and practices and the dream state. Practices included automatism, creating art without conscious and thought. and juxtaposing unrelated, unexpected objects to create dreamlike, illogical senses. Artistic interpretation is the persistence of memory by Salvador Dali depicts a melting pocket watches in a desolate landscape. The meticulously painted yet utterly impossible scene is perfectly captured the illogical, distorted, and symbolic imagery of a dreamscape, reflecting unconscious desires and fears. Last one is the pop art. Proponent Andy Warhol, flourishing context, United Kingdom and United States emerged as reaction against the seriousness of abstract expressionism embracing post-war consumer culture. Believes in practices drew inspiration of popular culture, mass production, and advertising and comic books is often used mechanical reproduction techniques like and irony to blur the lines between high art and low culture. The artistic interpretation is Campbell's Soup Cans by Andy Warhol. This series uses commercial product packaging as a subject matter, reproduced with a mechanical repetitive style. It celebrates the mundanity and ubiquity of American consumerism, treating everyday objects as ironic art subjects. The context of the the context of a work of art refers to the setting, circumstances, the background information that influence creation, meaning, and how it's received by the audience. It is the unseen fabric that weaves deeper significance into the work, transforming it from a static object into a reflection of specific time, space, and set of ideas.